All right, so we're diving into meal prepping today,
We sure are.
and we've got a ton of research to dig through.
A mountain of it.
But first things first, right? How much money can we actually save with this? Because one source claimed it's like 50 bucks a week.
Oh, yeah, at least. Think about what you'd spend on lunch if you grabbed it on the go every day.
Makes you think, huh?
Totally. And it's not just about the money either.
Oh, definitely.
This whole idea of meal prepping being like super rigid and only for, fitness people or whatever. Nah.
Right.
Our sources say it's way more flexible than that.
I like the sound of that.
You can make it work no matter how busy you are.
So no more excuses.
Exactly. But before we get ahead of ourselves, maybe we should start with like what meal prepping even is.
Yeah, good point.
Like, is it just spending your whole Sunday stuck in the kitchen?
Because nobody wants that.
One source defined it as getting any kind of food ready ahead of time.
That's it.
That's it. It could be as simple as like chopping some veggies, portioning out snacks, or...
Okay, that's doable.
Right. It doesn't have to be these elaborate recipes or anything.
So it's not just for people on some crazy diet.
Nope, not at all. A bunch of sources actually said it can help with like any nutrition goal you might have.
Really?
Yeah. Like if you're trying to eat more vegetables, chop them up ahead of time. Or if you're trying to cut back on sugar, make sure you have healthy snacks ready to go.
Smart.
It's all about making the healthy choice the easy choice.
Right. I like that. But what about the cost? Doesn't buying all those containers and ingredients get expensive?
That's actually where it gets kind of interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of sources actually said that meal prepping can save you money.
Wait, really?
Think about it. How often do you buy groceries and then end up throwing stuff away?
Oh, all the time.
Right. So if you plan your meals out in advance, you're only buying what you actually need.
And less waste.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Plus, you can usually get better deals when you buy in bulk. And, cooking at home is almost always cheaper than eating out.
So you're telling me I'm losing money by not meal prepping?
Pretty much. So we've established that it's flexible, it saves you money, and it's not just for, like, health nuts.
Right.
What else did we find out?
Well, a few sources highlighted some other benefits that I thought were pretty cool, like portion control.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Especially if you're trying to manage your weight, right?
Absolutely. When you've already got your meals portioned out, you're way less likely to overeat.
It's like built-in willpower.
Exactly. Okay, so I have a confession.
What's that?
I used to think meal prepping was basically signing up for a week of eating the same thing every day.
Oh, yeah. No thanks.
Right. But actually, the sources said that's not how it has to be.
Really?
It's more about having, like, components ready to go.
Components.
Yeah, like you could have pre-cooked chicken breast, roasted veggies, and quinoa.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
And then you can mix and match them throughout the week.
So one day you could have like a salad, and the next day you could throw those same ingredients into a grain bowl.
Exactly. That way you're not eating the exact same meal every day.
That makes a lot more sense. But what about keeping things interesting? Flavor-wise, I mean.
Ah, that's where sauces and seasonings come in.
Oh, of course.
Things like pesto, salsa, hummus, or even just a simple vinaigrette.
They can really elevate a dish.
For sure. And they add extra flavor and moisture.
Now I'm getting hungry. Okay, so meal prepping is flexible, it saves money, it helps with portion control, and it doesn't have to be boring.
That's the gist of it. But how do we actually do it? Like, where do we even start?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
The first step, according to our sources, is planning.
Planning. I feel like that's always the answer.
Well, it's important. Don't just wing it.
Okay.
Think about what meals you're going to need for the week.
Got it.
And how many servings of each.
Breakfast, lunch, dinner, the whole shebang.
Exactly. And you know what else? A little tip I learned from a meal prep pro is to look for recipes that share similar ingredients.
Ooh, smart.
That way you're not buying a ton of stuff you'll only use once.
And wasting food.
And wasting money.
Yeah.
So after you've got your plan, the next step is to make a detailed grocery list.
I love a good list.
Me too. I'm talking everything, down to the spices.
So important.
That way you're not running back to the store in the middle of the week because you forgot something.
Been there, done that.
All right, so we've got the plan, we've got the list. What's next?
What's next?
Choosing your prep day.
Prep day.
Yeah, it could be Sunday, it could be Wednesday, whatever works for your schedule.
So this is the day you set aside a few hours to cook and assemble everything.
Exactly. Any tips for maximizing efficiency once we're in the kitchen?
Well, one thing that came up a lot in the research was batch cooking.
Oh yeah, that's key. You're basically cooking larger quantities of things like grains or veggies or protein.
So that you can use them in multiple meals throughout the week.
You got it. It's way more efficient than cooking individual portions every single day.
Okay, that makes sense. But now we've got all this food. Where do we put it?
This is where those good quality food storage containers come in.
Oh, yeah, gotta have those.
And I don't mean just any containers. Look for ones that are airtight, leak-proof, microwave-safe, and freezer-safe.
No many requirements.
But you don't want leaky containers or anything, right?
True.
And label everything.
Oh my gosh, yes. Labeling is key.
Trust me, a few minutes spent labeling will save you so much time and frustration later on.
It's like having a little menu in your fridge.
Exactly. And even if you're not cooking entire meals in advance, just like pre-chopping veggies or portioning out snacks can make a huge difference.
Small steps, big wins.
Exactly. So I think we've covered the basics of meal prepping, the planning, the shopping, the prepping, and the storage.
We sure have.
But there's still so much more to explore.
Like what?
Well, we'll have to save that for part 2. We'll be diving into even more tips and tricks for making meal prep a sustainable part of your life.
Like turning leftovers into culinary masterpieces.
You know it.
Can't wait. Welcome back to our meal prep deep dive. Last time, we got into the basics of meal prepping, like planning your meals, getting those groceries, doing the actual cooking, and figuring out how to store everything.
All that good stuff.
But now we're going deeper.
We are.
Because, let's be honest, even when you're super motivated to meal prep, sometimes life just gets in the way, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And suddenly, those perfectly prepped meals don't look so appealing anymore.
I've been there.
So what do we do? How do we actually make meal prepping a sustainable part of our lives?
That's the key question, isn't it?
It is, because I know I'm not the only one who struggles with this.
Not at all.
Like sometimes, even if I manage to get all the cooking done, I end up eating the same thing every day and then I get bored.
Yeah, meal prep boredom is real.
And then takeout starts to sound pretty good.
I know exactly what you mean.
So what's the secret? How do we keep things interesting?
Well, one source had a really interesting take on this.
What's that?
They said, instead of prepping full meals, you should focus on prepping components.
Components. What do you mean by that?
So instead of cooking like specific recipes for each day,
Yeah.
you just prep a bunch of different elements.
Okay.
Like roasted veggies, cooked grains, grilled chicken, things like that.
Oh, so you're basically creating a mix and match system for your meals.
Exactly. You have all these building blocks ready to go. And then
You can just put them together however you want.
yep. So one day you could have a salad, the next day a grain bowl, maybe even throw those same ingredients into an omelet for breakfast.
That's actually pretty genius.
Right. It keeps things way more interesting, and it's super flexible
Because if you're not feeling a certain ingredient one day, you can just swap it out for something else.
Exactly.
This is totally changing how I think about meal prepping.
I'm glad.
Mhm.
It's really not about being restrictive at all.
It's more about being creative and having options.
And speaking of options,
What?
don't forget about sauces and seasonings.
Oh, they're lifesavers.
I know, right?
Yeah.
A good sauce can completely transform a dish.
Absolutely. I always make sure to have a variety of sauces on hand, like pesto, salsa, hummus,
Ooh, yeah, those are good ones. And even a simple vinaigrette can make a big difference.
Seriously. Okay, so we've got our components prepped, we've got our sauces ready to go, but what happens when life throws a curveball and you just don't feel like eating your prepped meal?
That's bound to happen sometimes.
Those days when takeout just seems like the only option.
We've all been there.
So is it okay to deviate from the plan?
Oh, definitely. One source really stressed the importance of flexibility with meal prepping.
So it's not about being super rigid and forcing yourself to eat something you don't want.
Exactly. If you're craving something different, go for it. Meal prepping shouldn't be a punishment.
That's a good way to put it. It's about making your life easier, not harder.
Right. One source suggested having a backup plan for those days.
A backup plan. I like that. What would that look like?
It could just be a list of quick and healthy meals that you can throw together if you're short on time or just not feeling your prepped options.
So like a veggie omelet or a big salad or something like that.
Exactly. That way you're always prepared, but you're not trapped by your meal prep schedule.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've talked about time constraints and meal prep boredom. What other challenges did the research mention?
Well, storage came up quite a bit.
Storage. Oh, yeah, that's important.
It is. And honestly, it's something I've definitely struggled with in the past.
Same here. Leaky containers, freezer burn, you name it.
It's so frustrating.
Like you spent all this time prepping your meals and then...
And then they go bad because you didn't store them properly.
The worst.
But our sources had some great advice on how to avoid those storage disasters.
Let's hear it.
First and foremost, invest in good quality food storage containers.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Quality over quantity, right?
Exactly. So what should we be looking for in a container?
You want containers that are airtight,
Airtight, okay.
Leak-proof, of course.
Of course.
Microwave safe and freezer safe.
So many things. But I guess it makes sense.
It does. You want to be able to store your food however you want without having to worry about it leaking or getting ruined.
Right. What about materials? Is glass better than plastic?
Honestly, it depends
On what?
on your personal preference and how you're going to be using the containers.
Okay, I see.
Glass is generally considered the safest and most eco-friendly option, but it can be heavy and breakable.
So maybe not ideal for taking lunch to work?
Right. Plastic is lightweight and convenient, but you want to make sure it's BPA-free.
Good point.
And then stainless steel is super durable, but it's not always microwave safe.
Gotcha. So many things to consider.
It's like choosing the right workout gear.
You need the right tools for the job.
Exactly. And speaking of tools, one source recommended having a variety of container sizes.
Ooh, why is that?
So you can store different types of food easily.
Oh, that makes sense.
You know, small containers for snacks and sauces, larger ones for salads and grain bowls.
It's all about having the right container for the right purpose.
Exactly. Okay, so we've got our containers all sorted out. What other storage tips do we need to know?
Well, I know labeling is super important, especially if you're freezing meals.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You don't want to be digging through your freezer a month later trying to figure out what's in those containers.
Been there. It's like a guessing game.
It really is.
So what's the best way to label?
Just write the name of the meal, the date you prepped it, and any reheating instructions.
Super simple, but so helpful.
And here's another tip I found really useful. Think about how you're organizing your fridge and freezer.
Organization. Okay, I'm listening.
So you want to store items that need to be eaten soonest towards the front of the fridge,
Got it.
and then keep your frozen meals organized in a dedicated section of your freezer.
So you're not wasting time searching for things.
Exactly. It's all about creating a system that works for you.
Love that. Okay, so we've talked about containers, labeling, organization, anything else?
One last thing. Pay attention to the shelf life of different foods.
Oh, right. Some things last longer than others.
It's exactly. Leafy greens tend to wilt quickly, but roasted veggies can hold up for a few days.
So do your research.
Yeah. A quick Google search can save you from a lot of wasted food.
True. All right. I think we've officially mastered the art of meal prep storage.
I think so too.
From choosing the right containers to organizing everything like a pro.
We've covered it all.
We have. But our deep dive isn't over yet. Next time, we're tackling some of the common challenges people face with meal prepping.
Ooh, like what?
We'll be talking about picky eaters, new dietary trends, and how to stay motivated when you just don't feel like cooking.
Can't wait.
Welcome back to our meal prep deep dive. We've explored a ton of great stuff so far.
We have.
All the benefits of meal prepping,
Right.
busting those common myths.
Like it being super restrictive or only for fitness fanatics.
And we even gave you guys a bunch of practical tips for planning, prepping, and storing those meals like a pro.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did. But now it's time to get real, you know?
What do you mean?
Because even with the best intentions, sometimes meal prepping can just feel, well,
Hard.
exactly. Like life gets in the way, schedules change, motivation takes a nosedive,
It happens.
and suddenly those perfectly prepped meals are just sitting there in the fridge, forgotten.
I know that feeling.
So how do we deal with that? How do we actually overcome those common meal prep challenges?
Well, that's exactly what we're going to talk about today.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm not the only one who struggles with this stuff.
Not at all. In fact, our sources had a ton of great advice on how to navigate these roadblocks.
Let's hear it. What's the first challenge we're tackling?
I think one of the biggest ones is simply finding the time to meal prep.
Oh, yeah, that's a biggie.
We're all so busy these days,
Seriously.
and trying to squeeze in a few hours of cooking on top of everything else.
It can feel impossible.
Right. But one source suggested that instead of trying to do everything at once,
Yeah.
you can break down the process into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Okay, I like that.
So instead of spending your entire Sunday in the kitchen,
Right. You could maybe chop veggies one night, cook some grains and protein the next day,
oh, I see.
and then assemble everything the day after that.
So spreading it out over a few days.
Exactly. It makes it way less overwhelming.
Totally. I feel like I could actually manage that.
And another source had this really cool tip about using those little pockets of time we often overlook.
Go like what?
You know, like while you're waiting for your coffee to brew in the morning.
Yeah.
You could throw together a quick marinade,
Ooh, that's smart.
or while dinner's simmering, you could roast some veggies.
Okay. I'm liking these time-saving hacks.
It's all about being creative and finding those little moments where you can squeeze in a little bit of prep.
I'm definitely going to try that.
Mhm.
Okay, time management is huge, But what other challenges did the research highlight?
Well, meal prep boredom came up a lot.
Ah, yes, the dreaded meal prep boredom.
We talked about variety earlier and using components to create different meals.
Right.
But sometimes even that's not enough. Sometimes you just get tired of getting the same thing no matter how healthy it is.
I hear you. But one source said that's where flavor comes in.
Flavor! Tell me more.
They suggested experimenting with different herbs, spices, sauces, toppings, things like that.
Oh, so it's not just about the ingredients themselves, it's about how you use them to create different flavor combinations.
Exactly. Like you could take the same basic ingredients, but use different seasonings to make them taste completely different.
Okay, that makes sense.
One day you could have roasted chicken with lemon and herbs.
Yeah.
The next day, try it with smoky paprika and cumin.
Ooh, yeah, I like that. You could even use different sauces to change up the cuisine.
Totally. A peanut sauce for Asian flavors, a chimichurri for South American, balsamic vinaigrette for Mediterranean.
Okay, this is actually making meal prepping sound fun.
It can be. It's all about getting creative in the kitchen.
I'm starting to see the possibilities.
But one more thing about variety.
What's that?
A few sources mentioned this concept of planned leftovers.
Planned leftovers. Intrigued. Tell me more.
So it's basically intentionally cooking larger portions of certain meals with the plan of repurposing them into different dishes later in the week.
Oh, that's a great idea. 2 meals in one.
Right. Like let's say you roast a whole chicken on Sunday.
Okay.
You could have it with roasted veggies for dinner that night.
Mm-hmm.
And then use the leftover chicken to make salads, tacos, soup, whatever you want.
I love that. It's like built-in variety, and it definitely helps with stretching your grocery budget.
Exactly. So we've talked about time constraints, meal prep, boredom, anything else we need to address.
Well, one thing that always gets me is the lack of motivation.
Motivation, the eternal struggle.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Some days, even the thought of chopping vegetables feels exhausting.
I know what you mean.
So how do we stay motivated, even when we're feeling burnt out?
One source recommended setting realistic goals.
Realistic goals.
Yeah. Don't try to do too much too soon.
Oh, okay. I'm definitely guilty of that.
It's easy to get overwhelmed and then give up completely. So maybe you start by just prepping your lunches for the week.
Oh, eh?
Or maybe you just focus on chopping veggies and cooking grains in advance.
So baby steps.
Exactly. And then as you get more comfortable, you can gradually add more to your routine.
I like that. What else?
Another source suggested finding a meal prep buddy.
A meal prep buddy. Like a gym buddy, but for cooking.
Exactly. It's way more fun to do it with someone else.
And you can hold each other accountable.
Right. And share recipes and tips and tricks.
Oh, I love that. Okay, we need to find some meal prep buddies.
Yes.
Anything else?
One last thing. A few sources talked about making meal prep a part of your self-care routine.
Ooh, self-care meal prep. That sounds interesting.
Right. Because taking the time to nourish your body with healthy home-cooked meals.
It's a form of self-love.
Exactly. It's about prioritizing your well-being.
And showing yourself some kindness.
And another source suggested creating a positive and enjoyable meal prep environment.
Ooh, I like that. How do we do that?
Put on some music you like, light a candle, pour yourself a glass of sparkling water.
Okay, now you're speaking my language.
It's all about making meal prep feel less like a chore and more like something you actually enjoy doing.
I think we've given our listeners a ton of great information about meal prepping.
We have.
We've talked about all the benefits, busted some myths, and given them practical tips for planning, prepping, storing, and staying motivated.
All with the goal of making healthy eating easier and more sustainable.
Exactly. And remember, meal prepping isn't a one-size-fits-all approach.
It's all about finding what works best for you.
Your lifestyle, your preferences, your goals.
It's about being flexible, adaptable, and willing to experiment.
And most importantly, it's about recognizing that even small steps can make a big difference in your health and well-being.
So as we wrap up this meal prepping deep dive, we want to leave you with a question.
A question.
What small step can you take today to incorporate meal prepping into your routine, even if it's just chopping some veggies or planning your meals for the week?
Remember, every journey starts with a single step.
And the journey to a healthier, happier you can absolutely start in the kitchen.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.